Well, good afternoon, everybody. Just in now, the advisory on what is now Tropical Storm Bret. So I hate to make anybody wait, so let's get right to the headline first on Tropical Storm Bret. So here's where we stand this afternoon, and you can see the crawl at the bottom of the screen. That's the latest advisory that just came in a couple of minutes ago. Of course, being a former television meteorologist, TV meteorologists always like it when the advisories come in before the top of the hour, because a lot of times our shows would start at the top of the hour, and when they come in before the top of the hour, it's so great because we can get the graphics on. Now, of course, the graphics are more automated, so they move more quickly and can populate more quickly, but let's get right to it. So we have what was our tropical depression 3 this morning. Is now Tropical Storm Bret. There is the 5 o'clock advisory. It's at 11.3 north, 42.2 west. This latitude number here, we're going to watch that because as it slowly goes up, that means that the storm is making slight northward progress as it moves to the west. Now, it's moving to the west pretty quickly, west at 21 miles an hour. That is going to play a role as to when the bad weather arrives in the islands, because it's a little bit faster than we were earlier seeing and the models were earlier indicating, and a bit faster means a bit sooner. Does it mean it won't get as strong? Maybe, maybe not, but it does mean that preps in the islands, and we'll talk about that specifically in just a second, preps will need to be completed now by sunset Wednesday and not sunset Thursday. I know earlier I was saying sunset Thursday because I thought we had a little more time, but in the eastern islands of the Caribbean, when I say the islands, I'm talking about right here, the Lesser Antilles, Windwards, and the Leeward Islands. So, and we'll break this down in more detail coming up here. But moving to the west at 21 miles an hour and winds at 40 miles an hour. Now, the expectation is that it will continue to strengthen, become a Category 1 hurricane sometime Wednesday or Wednesday night into Thursday, and then come through the islands there. And so here we are, Thursday afternoon. Now, if it's a little bit faster, it'll bring the bad weather into the islands during the day on Thursday. A little bit slower, it'll probably wait until the evening or overnight hours Thursday. Right now, the timing would be pretty much in the overnight hours on Thursday, because that position there is the 2 p.m. Friday position. Now, that white line, that is the outline of the cone. The cone just tracks where that center dot is expected to be. It doesn't track the whole storm, and it's only based on an average over the last 5 years. So it really doesn't even tell us, are the models doing good or the models doing bad? Do we have high confidence? None of that. This is just basically what's going on with where that center point is going to be. This yellow area here, this is something that I add on to it. It's based on the National Hurricane Center's wind speed probabilities, and it's the possible area for tropical storm conditions. So basically, Guadalupe to right now about St. Lucia there. So this is the initial, at least based on this advisory, about 4 days out, where the tropical storm conditions are expected, with some hurricane conditions also possible. This redder area here, that's the hurricane conditions. And as this whole track continues to march forward over the next few days, and the certainty increases on where the worst of the weather is going to go, that red will fill in more, and this yellow area will fill in more as well, and we'll have a better idea of what's going to happen. So once again, forecast to be Category 1, and then after that, it's on to the west-northwest there into the northeast Caribbean, and on Saturday afternoon, forecast the center somewhere here, either south or southwest of Puerto Rico or south or southeast of the Dominican Republic. Now, it is forecast to weaken, start weakening, but sometimes there's not a lot of difference between strong tropical storm and a weak hurricane or a low-end hurricane, so the conditions would probably be similar regardless here. I think the main thing is that so many people were really shocked by Maria in 2017 and Irma, that I just want to say right now, this is not going to be a Maria. This is not going to be an Irma. This is going to be an early season, very early part of the season for something coming out of the Atlantic like this. tropical storm or low-end hurricane, okay? It's going to be bad for the areas that it hits, of course. Any type of tropical storm or hurricane always causes problems, flooding problems, power outages, things like that. But this is not going to be one of these monster hurricanes. So we're just going to take that off the table right now and not consider that. Let's talk about kind of the areas that, and I do this graphic because it's a different way at looking at who potentially could be impacted. And basically, if you're in the blue areas here, which includes all of the U.S. coastline, Bahamas, Cuba, as well as the Gulf and most of the Caribbean, you're in this blue area, so there's no threat condition for what are hurricane preps. This graphic stands out here because this graphic means, what am I going to have to get ready for a hurricane? All right, not just a tropical storm, not bad thunderstorms or bad wind. This is when you have to do heavy lifting to get ready for a hurricane, something like putting up shutters or getting a generator ready to go, or all those kind of things. This is the blue areas are either beyond the 5-day time frame or there's no expectation of hurricane preparations here. But let's talk about the areas that are kind of under the bullseye here, and that includes the Lesser Antilles, basically once again from St. Lucia north into the northern Leeward Islands there. So a moderate risk. So folks in these islands, you need to be thinking about what you will be doing tomorrow and especially Wednesday if the storm is still coming and is still focused on your area. So this is the think about stage of preparations, and any little preparations that are easy to take care of, go ahead and start doing that. The thing I always want to talk about with hurricanes is it is a sprint. It is not a sprint. It is a marathon. It is a marathon, not a sprint. So in other words, it's not one of those last minute things. It's gradual preparation. And we always do gradual preparation. And what I mean by gradual is 5 days away, if you know it's coming, we do a few things. 4 days away, we clean up yard items. 3 days away, we do even more. And I'll show you that in detail in just a second here. I want to get the meteorology out of the way. And we go on and on and on like that. And once then it looks like it's really a threat and it could be significant, then we do our more significant preparations. But it's step by step by step. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. We don't wait till the last minute to do these kind of things. So basically low there for Barbados and the southern part of the Windward Islands there. Also low right now. Now it could go up tomorrow into a kind of a moderate. We're planning preparations for the Virgin Islands as well as Puerto Rico and the southern coast of the Dominican Republic there. But kind of this is where we stand. If you are in a blue area and you're like, okay, good, I don't need to watch anymore, fine, don't watch anymore. Because now we're going to kind of do a bit of a deeper dive here, go into the meteorology. Before I do that, I do want to do one thing and just talk about this. I was talking about this this prep thing, like where are we with preps and stuff like that. So when a storm is 7 days away, there are many possibilities of where it could go. And when it's 7 days out, and we're about 7 days out with respect to the United States, with the exception, of course, of Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands, we're not even sure if it's a threat to the United States. So we can't say, is it going to come here? Is it going to go in the Gulf? Is it going to go to the Southeast U.S.? Is it going to go someplace like that? It's just too early, and I don't even have a gut sense of what's going to happen with it. So, and I would tell you if I thought, it's going to do this, I have no idea. So we don't even know if it's a threat to the United States. When we're about 5 days away, then we kind of start to funnel a little bit. And this is usually when the cone is touching you, the 5-day cone. So at that point, I'm in South Florida. If I'm in the 5-day cone, then I'm starting to consider, is it a threat to Florida? And then as we get to 4 days away, we get more specific, like a lot smaller areas, Central and South Florida. 3 days away, specifically South Florida. By 2 days away, that's when we get into the county level type of watches that are issued at that 2 day away time frame. And then when we get to 36 hours away, 24 to 36 hours away, then we start to really get focused on where specifically is the threat area. And then, of course, 12 hours away and down to the 6 hours away, that's when we're starting to consider, what is the threat to your house. So this is kind of how we deal with it here in the U.S. on the mainland. We're keeping an eye on it. It's 7 days away at least. We're just keeping an eye on it. If it gets to 5 days away where the cone is touching us, then we start to think about it. We're not really doing anything other than our seasonal preps. Seasonal preps include, checking your insurance, things like that, trimming excess trees, those kind of things. So those are our 5-day away things. By day 4, if it's 4 days away, we're topping off our hurricane kits and supplies. By day 3, we're thinking of personal preparations. That includes medicine and things like that. By day 2, when the watches are issued, that's when we start our home and our boat preparations, if it's easy to do. If it's harder to do, we might start that on day 3. And by the time we get into day 1, the warnings are issued. We finish our outdoor preparations, take care of shutters and anything like that. And then when it's less than 24 hours away, we're doing our indoor preparations. That means pre-positioning flashlights and things like that for power outages and getting ready inside. 12 hours away, basically we're sheltering in place. We're not getting out and about. And then 6 hours away, that's typically what we call the hunker down mode there. So those are just kind of some of the ideas with where we stand on a timeline here. And once again, it kind of is a funnel, because as it gets closer, we become better at determining where it's going to go, how bad it could be. But right now, for the U.S., just too far away. Really, it's only the Eastern Caribbean where we see that kind of detail. All right, so let's take a meteorological deeper dive. All right, so here's where it looked today on the satellite, and you can see we're not only tracking Bret, but we're also tracking another very strong disturbance behind Bret. Let me zoom in here. There's a bit wider picture of the basin. You can see there on the left side of the screen, there are the islands. So here is our second disturbance, and it's been designated 93, AL 93, because it's in the Atlantic basin. Sometimes we just say 93L or Invest 93. And you can see it's got quite a bit of thunderstorm activity, convection as we call it, and you can almost make out a bit of a swirl that becomes exposed there, right about there, as we're going along here. So certainly something to watch. The models tend to develop it as well. One of the things I learned in the crazy 2004 and 2005 and 2017 seasons when I was covering all those hurricanes is you always focus on the first storm. Don't worry about the thing behind it. You always focus on the first storm. You don't want to lose sight of the thing that is more immediate, and that is Bret. There's Bret today kind of wrapping up there. When I say wrapping up, I mean that. You can see kind of just really going to zoom in there as it's gone through the day. So getting better organized, of course, intensifying, and now a tropical storm. It's not a large, in terms of size, tropical storm. That's a good thing. It's not going to impact a huge number of people. The people that do get impacted by it, though, of course, never good. It'll be bad in terms of tropical storm or minimal hurricane intensity there, and that kind of badness, not major hurricane strength. This is the water vapor loop. We use the water vapor loop because you can, number one, see lots of detail here. We can see that there's upper level outflow spreading out from Bret there. We can also see that the south side here looks what we would call impinged, which means there's a little bit of shear coming in. And there's even some dry air. That's that orange color down there that could be pressing in on it as well. So that pressing in on it there may help limit the strengthening as it goes forward here. So that's one of the things to consider. And you can see the other system right on its heels coming in right behind it there. There may be a little bit of interaction here. That's really hard to predict. You can almost see the outflow from that second system kind of trying to push into Bret as well. All things to consider. Now, the computer models that we use, all the models, the global models and the specific hurricane models, from those we get what are called hurricane trackers. They're the things that we help connect the lines that we call the spaghetti models. I the term spaghetti models. And eventually the European will start getting that spaghetti model or model tracks as well. But in the interim, what I've done is just I've put the kind of the Europeans center of circulation. That's that round area right there. And you'll see as we go forward into time here, all the lines spread out, and the European's actually the fastest moving system there as we go forward into time. So here we are in the time frame right about here. That is Thursday afternoon. That's why I think it's going to be either by Wednesday sunset or early Thursday morning to get things wrapped up there in the islands. You can see there's fair agreement now. A lot of the models that were going to the north here have now kind of caught up, or as we sometimes say, corrected toward the European. The European has been pretty bullish on just going west-northwest splitting kind of the Lesser Antilles there and going right into the middle of the Caribbean. Once again, time frame is up here, that based on this model run, which most of these models were from 12Z or 8 a.m. this morning. So that's by 4 p.m. on Thursday. We'll go forward a little bit into time here. And you can see there is some divergence. These models here are very simple models, but these models here have had a rightward bias, and they continue to have that here. So in Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, don't get too excited yet about the GFS. The GFS has had to really adjust. The CTCX, that has been doing well. Did very well last year. The GFS Ensemble, which I'll put up here in just a second, has trended also to the west. And there is the European. The European has a very weak system falling apart, actually almost into a tropical depression once it gets into the central Caribbean. Could this be a potential rainmaker down here in Central America? Yeah, it could be. Could it be something stronger? That's a possibility too. It's beyond our time frame here. Could it kind of take more of a northwest turn? That's a possibility too. But right now, we're just pretty certain that it's going to come into the Caribbean. That's about the extent of it. There's the ensemble from the GFS. You can see now almost all of the members are to the west northwest like that. These other members that were going that way, they are few and far between now. So what could stop it? What could break it up? What could disrupt it? Probably nothing's going to really just stop it, but it could be disrupted by this wind shear pattern. This is something that is El Nino induced. It's what we think of as a subtropical branch of the jet stream. There's our polar branch up there. But usually in an El Nino pattern, which we're in now, we have this feature down to the south, which are strong jet stream winds in the subtropics, just above the tropics. So that's going to be with us, thankfully, as we go through the summer here. And it's a good thing because I think it's going to kind of help catch some of these or disrupt some of these storms that are going to be coming, because typically when we have storms in June, it's a harbinger of more storms and a busy season. So let's go forward into time here. Of course, the clock is in the upper left, and you'll see the Hurricane Center's forecast cone pop on there. And there we go into time. And so it's low shear through Wednesday, low to moderate shear by Friday, and then look at it run into this kind of this northerly wall of shear there. So here's the shear coming down like that. The humidities drop a little bit and that wind shear increases. In fact, some of the models are saying it's going to be in the moderate to strong area. And that's why the thinking is that this is going to weaken a little bit as it comes into the Caribbean like that. It could weaken even more. It could be sheared apart. All those things are possibilities. So certainly a lot of things going on there. All right, I see a few questions. Let me take a few questions in the chat. Let me get back to a graphic that's kind of. We'll get back to the advisory graphics. That's kind of the most important thing there. And so let me say first a few things about the people who are going on a cruise. This is not one of these systems that cruise ships have a hard time avoiding. This has a big sign on it saying "Avoid me," and cruise ships will stay away from this. So I wouldn't worry about the storm affecting the cruise ship that you might be on. It could affect your cruise itinerary, but it's not going to affect your cruise ship. So you're safe going on a cruise, but your itinerary might be impacted by Bret. In terms of those who are going to the islands or someplace to a resort, and boy, I'll tell you what, the mosquitoes, I'm in South Florida, and the mosquitoes there are bad right now, and they're getting in the house too. So those of you who are going to a resort, I think I would just call ahead to the resort and make sure they have a hurricane plan. If they say, well, there's nothing coming here and it's in the Eastern Islands there, I think I would press them a little bit, because you want to know that they know what's going on where you're going, and you want to know that they have a hurricane plan and a generator too. Power outages are common when there's a tropical storm or a hurricane, so you don't want to have a miserable vacation, and there's no guarantee that that's going to happen, but you just want to make sure the resort is kind of set like that. In terms of where this goes after this, like I said, we're out to 5 days. I'll go back out to 5 days. And so beyond that, it's really, if it survives, we don't even know that. But the chances are that's a severe thunderstorm warning in Miami. You're going to see it pop up here on the screen. That is something that we always consider is that it might not even survive. The thing might completely fall apart. All right, let's see. The warm waters off the west coast of Europe. Yeah, I think it's gonna definitely enhance the season. It's certainly kind of loading the dice, right? And we just have to hope that the SHEAR pattern stays up and kind of helps to intercept those. Let's see what else. So the cruise, yeah, I think you'll be okay. Let's see, anything else? Because the cruise ship is not going to go into the storm, of course. So, well, thanks for joining, guys, and be sure to share it with your friends, of course. Push the like button, the subscribe button, and the notification button, and I will be back to do this again tomorrow. In the meantime, though, have a good evening, and of course, we'll keep our eyes on Bret.